guys, I'm Diane and this is Narrow Dreams. So today I thought I'd do a frequently asked questions, if you like. These are questions that, even though we've only been living on board for 5 months, we have been asked all of these questions more than once. So I thought I would answer those for you today. One of the first questions we were asked initially when we said we were going to sell up and buy a boat, I'm not going to answer today because that question was, are you mad? And possibly we are, but it's a lifestyle that suits us. So that's a question I'm not even going to attempt to answer today. But there are 5 questions that we've been asked quite a lot that is what I'm going to talk about and answer today. But what I would like is, if you've got any questions that are not answered in this video, I would like to know what they are, and obviously I'll answer them for you if I can. Also, if you've got a boat, if you live on a boat or you've just got a boat for leisure, then what questions have you been asked by people who are not boaty people? So the first question that actually we're always being asked is it cold living on a boat in winter? Well, we've been really lucky so far. We're at the end of January now and it's been a very mild winter, so I don't feel as qualified to answer that question as someone who's been living on a boat for a long time and has been through much harsher winters. But certainly our experience so far has been that often the opposite problem is true. A couple of days ago it was really cold. We'd had some very icy weather, and we actually had to take the dog out for a walk simply to cool down because it had got so hot in the boat. So here's why it doesn't get cold on a boat. So what you can see now is the inside of a narrowboat before the walls go up. And the white stuff you can see is not paint, it's spray foam insulation, which obviously is there to act as a insulating layer that keeps the heat inside the boat. There are other types of insulation, but this is the one that our boat's got, and from what we can tell it's obviously quite effective, because once it warms up in here the heat really does stay at a fairly constant temperature. This is the thing that heats our boat up, very effective at doing so. If this goes out, then it does cool down pretty quickly, insulation or no insulation. And you can see on the top of the fire that there's a fan which blows the warm air down the boat, and it is quite effective. I think it's better than before we got it, so I do think it's doing its job of pushing the warm heat down the boat. There is really nothing nicer than sitting in your boat at night in winter, watching the fire and feeling the heat from it. It's just absolutely perfect. There are other ways of heating your boat. Not everybody has a log burning stove, although I think the vast majority of narrowboats do. But you can have a diesel stove. Lots of boats also have central heating systems with radiators, either diesel or gas run. And we had thought, when we first got the boat, knowing that our boat hasn't got that on board, we had thought that perhaps we might at some stage need to have an Everspacher or something like that fitted to give us central heating in the boat. But as yet we haven't found it a problem at all. With the eco fan on the stove, it just pushes the heat down the boat to the bedroom and it's lovely and warm. We have got a very old arthritic dog, and it does get quite cold on the floor of boats, So what we've done for her is we've got her a nice cosy blanket, because she likes to sleep down in the bedroom when we go down there. But we've also got a very small oil-filled radiator, which we put on a very low heat overnight, just to keep the chill off when it's really cold. We only do that when it is sort of freezing outside. But obviously in winter we get those days. There's also other things you can do. I mean, you can have a lot of boats now that are being built have double glazing. You can have it sort of fitted afterwards as well if you like. You can also put in sort of a secondary double glazing. It's like a film that you apply. You put a hairdryer on it to stretch it out and stuff. And we did think about that. But to be honest, when we've got the fire on, the windows tend to be open. So there's not much point double glazing them, because it does just get so warm. And if you're thinking of cooking a Sunday dinner at the same time as having your fire on, you're stripping down to shorts and t-shirts, because it really does get quite warm. So we haven't had a problem at all keeping warm. Obviously we've got decent duvets and things, but I even bought things like hot water bottles, thinking, if we're really cold we can put hot water bottles in. Well, they're sat in the drawer, never been used, because we just haven't been cold enough yet. So in answer to, is it cold on a narrowboat in winter, my answer so far would be, no, it's not. So the next question that we've been asked quite often is, where do you keep all your stuff? And there's a very simple answer to that one. The answer is, you don't keep all your stuff, that is. Downsizing from a 3-bedroomed house to a 57-foot narrowboat, as we did, is, I'm sure you can imagine, quite a challenge. So I would say we must have given away, sold, dumped, taken to charity shops at least 85% of what we owned, if not more, because you simply do not have room on a narrowboat for everything that you had in a house and any outside spaces like sheds and garages, things like that. There is just nowhere to put these things, so you have to make the decision that you're going to get rid of them. And to be honest, I can't think of anything that we've let go that we've missed. So, it must not be stuff that we've needed. But even the things you do need and that you have to keep, you have to get quite clever with storage. And I've done videos on storage before, but really that is what it's all about on a narrowboat. The stuff that you do need to keep, you need to get clever with storage. So you get very good at organising cupboards. This is our wardrobe, which has got inserts in to make it easier to store things. The unit you can see there with all the drawers in, we've got 2 of those, so that's quite a lot of storage space. And the sofas have drawers underneath. So any furniture you buy it with storage in mind. When it comes to things like kitchen equipment, you don't have as many kitchen cupboards as you had, because your galley is much smaller than a kitchen in a house. So you get very good at using wall space and sticking up storage solutions. That means you save your cupboard space for other things, and you don't have to do without things and get rid of stuff. You just hang it on the walls. So another question we've been asked is it claustrophobic living in such a small space? And I suppose the answer to that would be different for every person. I can only answer for how I feel, and I know how Neil feels as well is sort of the same as me. So our son came to visit a couple of weeks ago, and he lives in a house currently, but he has lived in a van. He's talking about getting another van. He'd quite like to do that again. He likes the idea of living on a boat and that sort of thing. And he said, he knew he was coming to see us, and he was thinking about space. And in his bedroom, he's got a bed and a wardrobe and whatnot, but then he's got loads of floor space that is only used for walking from the bed to the door to get to the rest of the house. And when he looked round, the amount of space you've got that actually you're not really making full use of, he didn't think, you know, going to a smaller living space was a problem. And as I say, he sort of knows he's lived in a smaller thing than us, living in a van. But for us, it's not a problem at all. We haven't once thought, oh crikey, there's not enough room in here. You just get used to it. It is just, you know, this is what life is, and that's what you get used to. And there's less cleaning. It's, you know, half an hour, and yet your housework, boat work, whatever, is done. Because there's just not the sort of volume of spaces that you've got to clean. It's easy to heat. It doesn't take long to warm up, and once it is warm, it stays warm quite easily. And there's not... you've got to be tidier. You've got to not have clutter and things. So it just, for me, it makes life so much easier. But there is another major factor, I think, for me, in that I don't find boat life claustrophobic. When you can look out of your windows every day and see views like this, then I can't see how I could ever feel claustrophobic. As I say, I can't speak for other people, but for me, just being able to go to the window and see this sort of thing just has me pinching myself every day. I've said it before, but just to realise how lucky I am to be able to live this life. So even if you do start to feel claustrophobic, actually just open the doors and go out for a walk in it. You know, even when it's like this and this poor frozen duck. I think it is precisely those windows that you can look out of that make it feel not claustrophobic as well, because it's so light with all the light coming in through the windows, and it's just so cosy that, you know, I sit here at night and I can't imagine ever wanting to be anywhere else, to be honest. So for me, no, it's not claustrophobic at all. Now this next one you may not believe, but I have genuinely been asked, do you have a toilet? And I think maybe by extension they mean, you know, have you got a bathroom? Can you wash? Well, obviously, if we're living aboard, it would be impossible to do so without those facilities. So yes, of course, we've got a toilet and a shower. We don't have a bath on board, but we do have a proper shower. And you will find that if you put two or more boaters together, for more than a few minutes, the talk inevitably gets round to toilets, because it does seem to occupy, you know, quite a bit of space in our thoughts. There are several options for toilets. What we have currently is a cassette toilet. And before we moved on board, and even sort of maybe initially afterwards, we thought that maybe we would change that for a composting toilet, but having thought about it, to us it's not really true composting, because where we are at the minute, living in the marina, all that would happen is the solids would be bagged up and put in the bin. So that's not really any better than emptying a cassette into the Elsan. So we may replace the one we've got, but at the minute we will probably just replace it with another cassette toilet. But there are composting toilets that separate the liquid and the solids, and you dispose of those separately. There are also pump out toilets. We didn't really want one of those. The first boat we put an offer on, that turned out not to be the boat for us, did have a pump out loo, and we were going to live with it for a while if we'd have had that boat and see how it went. but we didn't really fancy the idea of a pump out, and if you get stuck and you can't pump it out and that sort of thing, it's a lot more of an issue to deal with. So that, I know it suits a lot of boaters, but for us it wouldn't have been our first choice. Another option that we've recently heard about, and quite a few people seem to have them on vans, but I'm really not sure about on a narrowboat, is an incinerating toilet. And it does exactly what you'd think it'd do from the name. It actually reduces any waste to ash. It just incinerates any solids. I don't know what it does with the liquids. I'm assuming you either empty those off or it just sort of evaporates them somehow. I don't know. But they're very, very costly. They're about £3,500 for an incinerating toilet. And to be honest, even if they were cheaper, I'm not sure I would fancy one of those. So in answer to the question, do you have a toilet? Yes, of course we do. And the final question I've got for today is, well, it was asked first to me by our granddaughter, but we have been asked by other people, what do you eat? Sometimes I feel like answering, just, well, fish out of the canal, grass from the towpath, but obviously that's not true. We eat exactly what anybody else eats, and exactly what we would have eaten if we were living in a house. We've got a gas cooker, a 4-burner ring and a grill. We also have a microwave that we use when we're on shoreline. We don't use that when we're out cruising, but while we're on shoreline, we use that. We've got a George Foreman, we've got a slow cooker, we've got a Ramoska cooker. Just, the same things that anybody else would have. We've got a toaster. And in addition to that, we've also got our stove. So we can stick a pot on top of the stove when it's going, and cook stews, soups, whatever you like. Do it on top of the thing. We can also, inside, if you wrap them in foil, you can do some lovely jacket potatoes. So the options are endless. We eat like anybody else does. So, as I said at the beginning, if you've got any questions that I haven't answered, or you want to ask something else about something that I have talked about, or if you've been asked any strange questions about being on a boat, I'd love to read about them in the comments. Obviously, any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, could you give it a like? And, if you've not already, then it would be great if you could subscribe to the channel. That would be really appreciated. So, next time, I'm going to be talking about pets on board. So I hope you'll join me for that one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.